Good. I'm glad you found it, Londa. Right. So I'm going to start. It's maybe 1 minute too. So what I thought I'd do tonight, because it's a little bit, it's one of those things where you're all going to ask me questions, and I think the easiest thing to do is to actually do a slideshow when there's a lot of information, and then you can pick up the notes on this slideshow from my group, Deb Canham Surgisanity Projects. There is no place to put files in this, my page. So that's where you have to go and pick them up. And they are already there because I actually posted them last week. So let's have a look at the slideshow because it's going to explain things and then I'll demo a few things. So we are looking at the new microfeet for the Applaud. And I will be offering an Applaud project class in January. I will announce the date shortly. I haven't really decided the format for sure. I'm jumping around, so if there's things you want, let me know. Okay, the instructions on how to use these microfeet are really, really good. Um, if you go to babylock.com and click on the feet kit, it'll give you the instructions. And there's lots of great pictures and things to help you along. There are Applaud cording and taping micro insert feet and also stitch in the ditch. So they all come together. Okay, so there's a lot of small feet in this kit. Okay, the stitch in the ditch are perfect for stitching in the ditch or doing as a guide for sewing on an edge too. So click on the details on that Babylock website and you will get to see the instructions on how to use these feet with lots of pictures. Of course, I am going to tell you as well, but that's a good reference. They're well done. So the stitch in the ditch feet are a game changer. Now I'm working on a jacket and I have to stitch in the ditch, but well, no, I'm going to stitch both sides of the seam to keep my fabrics open. So this would be the perfect foot to use, or there's three. So this would be perfect for that. And also for overlap seams in knitwear, okay? So I'm not actually going to cover these feet tonight because there just isn't enough time, but I will do in time. But you can see there's three of them, and that's because the stitch and the ditch feet go with each needle. So you have the stitch in the ditch with the left needle, the center needle, and the right needle. So that's why there are 3 feet. So let's go on to the cording foot. Now, the cording feet, you can see they're the top 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, they're the top 4 feet in that picture. And there's a 5mm, a 2.5mm, 2mm, and a 1.6mm, which if you're anything like me, doesn't mean very much because I'm not much into millimeters. But you can see they have holes in, and basically your stuff has to fit in the holes. The one on the left, top row left, is for quite a thick cording. And then you can see that the other 3 allow you to use 2 cords in. Although you don't have to, you could just use one. But you know, it's just that's the way the feet are. And the kind of things you can use for cording are rat tail, macrame yarn, and 8-weight thread. And I will show you some samples I've done with that. So you have 3 feet that allow you to use the cording doubled and one for wider cording. Taping feet, these are the bottom 2 feet, and it's an 8mm wide or 3/16 or a 5mm narrow left or an 1/8. So quite different in sizing. And you know what I would say to you is get your ribbon and try it in these 2 and see where it fits. But in the main, I used an 1/8 in the smaller one, and I used a getting there 3/8 in the bigger one. So I will show you some of that. If you're going to use the narrow one, which is the second at the bottom row on the right, if you're going to use the narrow one, you're going to set up C1 and C2 needles. If you're going to use the wide one, you're going to set up for triple cover, okay? So how to disengage the microfiche, and I'm going to show you that. You're going to disengage the wipers so they are open, raise the needles, place fabric under the foot so you don't drop it in the machine, place the foot down and grasp the tabs of the plastic at the front of the foot and pull towards you. And then you're going to slide the new one in. Now I'm actually going to demo that, so I'm not going to hang on that too long. And inserting tape or cording. To be honest, I find it easier to insert the tape or cording before I attach the microfoot. So you're going to come up through the front slot and down through the second slot. And again, I'm going to demo this, but make sure you have ribbon sticking out the back, okay? And you're going to place your tape or cording in front of your machine so you can see it. Stitch a few stitches to ensure your cover stitch is working. I always use a spare piece of fabric to set up my stitch. And then when everything is going and my wiper threads are locked, I move on to my planned fabrics. Then thread the wipers. You can use one wiper or both wipers. I like to thread my wipers after I've got my ribbon in or cording in. So which needles to use? Well, it's going to give you a clue in the foot, okay? So look at the feet. While there are slots for using two pieces of cording at the same time for different size cording, you do not have to. You could just use one piece of cording. If you place the cording in the left side, only you will use a C1 and a C2 needle. That's the two left needles, and I'll demo that. I'll show you what I mean. If you're using the right side, then you'll use the C2 and C3 because you basically want your stitch to go over your cording or ribbon. So, that's the way you're going to deal with it. And on the tape foot, where you've got the narrow ribbon, you're going to need to use the C1 and C2 because it needs to go over the ribbon, and you can see on the foot, I mean, you can absolutely see on the foot where you need to put the needles. Okay, so don't worry about that. Right, let's go back to me, and I'm going to take you over to my other camera, and I'm just going to show you some of the things I've done so that you can see what the effect is. I have lots of plans for it, but I haven't got them all to fruition yet. But I particularly like the ribbon foot, and I think you will too. So let's transition over to that. So here we have it. Move you along a bit so you're more in front. Right, so these are decorative stitches, but you see this turquoise one? And I can um, you can see that there's cording underneath that. If I hold it up a bit closer, do you see this white cording? It's actually macrame yarn underneath there, so it makes a really nice textured stitch. And I've used an 8-weight thread and sewn over the top of it. This purple one, can you see that I've used ribbon underneath the decorative stitch? And I really like that because it gives a really strong block of color behind, where the ribbon is. And I think that looks really cool. What else have I got here? This one is where I sewed over a narrow ribbon. Now, normally with this one, you see how my stitch is bigger. This one I should have used my C1 and C2 needle, but I actually used my C1, my C2, and my C3. And you see I've got a little bit of a stitch above it, but I don't dislike that. I think it still has some place to go. It just makes it more, I don't know, makes it more interesting, really. So in this case, I did use triple cover as against a narrow. And this one I want to show you because I particularly like this too. This is, and again, I think this is really interesting. This is the cording foot, the smallest cording foot, and the cording that I put in it wasn't really cording. It was 8-weight thread. And so you get this kind of stripe. Isn't that fun? And I sewed over it with a triple cover and a thread in my wiper. But see, you can get so many different looks. It's all about using different yarn and things like that. So pretty exciting. Let's see if I've got any more. This one I did use a narrow stitch. Do you see it's just gone over this You try and get it. And I used a glittery ribbon, and I think that's effective too. So let us have a look at how it all works. Let me just check for questions. So Judy says she's got no internet connection, but I think you're still seeing me. I'm seeing me on my phone, so I think it's good. Remember, if you have trouble watching a live, you can always come back and watch the recording because it's always much clearer, much more stable. Right, so here is the foot, and I actually don't have anything in there at the moment, but I want to talk about the how to take out the cording foot. So what I'm going to do is try and find a plain piece of fabric so that it doesn't get confusing. So I put some fabric underneath, and you see the front of this foot, it's plastic, and it just pulls out. Okay, that's the regular microfoot that comes with your machine. Tells you where the needles are stitching. All very useful. Okay, and then to put it back in again, you're going to slide it in. It's best to do this with the foot down because it slides into grooves at the back of the foot. And if you have the foot down, it'll help it go in the right place. Okay, so just removing it again. And then if I want to put it back in, I've got my foot down and I'm just going to slide it in. So I'm going to put that in a safe place because they're tiny, so easy to lose. So what should we start with? Should we start with the ribbon? That's good fun. So I have several ribbon feet, two. Let me see, cording foot. It's called the taping foot. I called it ribbon. That's probably incorrect. It's an 8mm and a 5mm. And I'm set up for triple cover. So I'm going to use the bigger one. And here it is. Do you see it? And I'm going to be using some ribbon. I'm going to use this ribbon. It's an offray ribbon and it is 3/8. Okay, now how do I know it fits in there? Because it's got to fit. It is a fraction too big. So let me see another one. It really comes down to how soft the ribbon is as to whether you can get it in there. I think I did use that ribbon. I'm going to make it fit. Force it in by all means. So here's the bottom of the foot. So I'm going to go up through the front. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to cut that ribbon so it is at an angle, then it will feed through more easily. So I've cut it. So I'm going to feed it up at the front and up at the front slot and down into the back slot. Okay. And then I want plenty at the back because I want it to go out the back of the foot. And what I'm going to do is raise my foot, and I need to free up my threads at the back because I have a thread chain. So the easiest way to do that is to take your Allen key, just loosen these threads at fraction and then just pull back. See, that's loosen my threads so that my thread chain won't impede my ribbon going in. So there's my microfoot on my ribbon. I'm going to put it under there. Going to put my foot down and I'm just going to click it on. I'm going to raise my foot, make sure my ribbon is straight at the back. And that is my ribbon in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unfurl a bit of ribbon so that I have plenty running. And I am going to find a piece of fabric. I have some. I'm just going to find a piece of scrap fabric because all I'm doing is just testing that it's all working. So I'm going to lift my foot, put my fabric under, and pull you back a bit so you can see a bit more. And then I'm just going to stitch. And that is working perfectly. And the ribbon's being held in place. So I'm just going to stitch off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread one of my wipers. I'm only going to thread the left one. At the moment, my wipers are off because I'm not using them. You can see the circle, that means they're off. So what I'm going to do is thread my wiper. So I'm going up through the aerial arm. I'll pull you back a bit so you can see me do that. Gosh, but I hope my arms are long for this. Right, so I've gone up through the aerial arm. I'm going to go in there. Do you hear that click? That was it going in the tension. I'm going to raise my foot because, of course, I shouldn't be doing this with my foot down. Come down, go under the silver bar here, go through the front of the foot, into my left wiper. Okay, so that is my thread done. So move you a bit closer so you can see that. And what I generally do is I generally start on, so let me get my chair a bit nearer. I generally start on a piece of fabric and get it all going. So I've got my foot down. I'm going to engage my wipers by pushing up that red lever. I'm going to gently hold this back here so it doesn't argue. And once I've taken a few stitches, I'm going to cut this bit because it can get in the way of things. So here we go, we're just stitching. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to introduce my piece of fabric. So I'm using a cream, so I'm going to use a cream stripe. This is just convenient for the purpose. And I like to do little waves and things, but I find it a little bit harder with this wider taping. I'm just going to put a curve in it because you know I hate straight lines. So there, so I just put a little curve in it. But isn't that nice? You've got the purple ribbon underneath. If I hold it at an angle, you see the color better. And then you've got the green wiper thread on the top. So pretty cool. Now I can use I can use both wipers. I can use any decorative thread. Um, and this is with the wide taping foot, which is what I put the ribbon in. Okay. So do I have any questions on that foot? So yes, so Nancy said to me, I just received my applaud. Is the accessory bag necessary if I have the Triumph one? Don't get confused with these two things, they're different. Okay, there is a foot kit for the applaud. You need to check what's in it. I think it has some feet you might not have, but you need to check that and see if you already have some of those feet. But I'm talking about the micro feet. They're a different thing altogether, and they've only just become available. So you won't necessarily find them in the foot kit. I think you'll have to buy them as a separate kit. Can we just decorate the ribbon? Well, should we try? We can do that. So let's go back to the... Right, so we're just going to decorate the ribbon. Now remember, you can use this foot with So yes, you can just decorate ribbon. So let me cut some off so I can show you. So there you are, we just decorated the ribbon. Actually, it's funny because it kind of stretched on one side, which actually could be super cool if you want a curve. So yeah, cool, huh? So do I have any other questions? Can I use it on towels? That's an interesting question. I would say this, if I was going to use it on towels, I of course I would try it and see how it went. If I had trouble with the pile, then I would put something on top like a washable plastic so that it didn't catch the nap of the towel as it went. The guide bar is sold separately and it is deeper than the one for the Triumph. It's also equal distance. You can do it equal distance. You can't do that on the Triumph one. So let me go on and show you the cording for. I'm undecided. Why don't I do that stripy one? Because I kind of quite like that, and I have the threads for that. But this is this is a macrame yarn, which is quite thick, so you could use that. I think you can go a bit heavier. You can use rat tail. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a raised stitch. So it's going to create a raised stitch. I've used it somewhere. I've got it here somewhere. It was on a white. So, I mean, I like that. It's textured, okay? It's very textured. It's the turquoise and it's very textured. It's very thick. It stands up. I've, I've got two pieces of that macrame yarn in there, but I could have used something else. Like in this one, I have just two 8-weight threads threaded in. So I think that's what I'm going to do because I like that. So, but certainly you can use the bigger cording and use, basically you're going to look at your foot and you're going to say to yourself, which holes can I get the yarns into? It's that's what it's about. You look at the hole, look at the size of the yarn. You just have I can't see for cones of thread. Oh, I've got two dazzles. They're 8-weight threads. Remember, you can use much heavier thread in the wipers. So I'm going to cut my ribbon and run it out. So I'll put you back to that. And then I'm going to put the other one in. The other foot, that is. Right. So find my scissors. It's always a achievement. Right. So I'm just thinking, I tend to undo my wipers. I don't think it's actually, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to undo my wiper just because I think it makes it easier. It doesn't take a second to thread it. So I'm going to disengage my wiper and put it back to normal. I'm going to find my foot and I'm using the 1.6 cording foot. That's the one with the smallest holes in, okay? It has a light blue dot on it. They're all color coded. So there it is. And I'm going to take the foot I have on there, which is my ribbon foot, and put it back in the right bag before I lose it. So here it comes. I'm just going to pull it off. I've got my foot down and I should have put a piece of fabric under there because you could just drop it into the machine. So I'm going to do that now. And then I'm going to put this foot on. But before I put this foot on, you can see it's got small holes for the thread. Before I put this on, I'm actually going to load it up with thread because I just think it's easier. So this is my turquoise thread, and it's going to go up through the front and down through the back. And again, I want enough thread going through that I can have it come out the back of the foot, okay? Oh, this is, just let me, I don't want you to see me licking it. Right, so there's the first one in. So you come up at the front and down at this one. Okay, so that, see? So I'm going to thread the other one in, and I have enough thread sticking out the back of the foot. So I've got, this one's actually, what the green one's a dazzle, and this one is a variegated rayon. And of course, it's easier when the ends aren't frayed to put it into. So up at the front and down. I know you can't see it, it's such a small foot, but I'll show you when I've done it. There you go. So you see both my threads are threaded into this foot. What I need to do now is I need to lift my foot, and I need to just put my foot down for a minute. Hope I don't drop it. And then I just want to raise my foot, and I want to loosen these needle threads so that I've got some room to put it in, okay? Because I have a thread chain here, and that will stop me moving it back. So I'm going to take away that piece, and I'm going to pick up my foot. I'm going to place it with the threads at the back coming out. I'm going to put my foot down because that's just the easiest way to do this, and clip it on. I don't want to catch my threads in my process, so there we go. I think that's good. Yep, they're both moving freely. So there's my threads in my little micro foot. What I have to do now is I have to rethread my wiper thread because I undid it. And then it goes through the front of the foot, and I'm going to use the left wiper again. It's just the left wiper is higher than the right wiper, so it's a little bit easier to thread. Right, so there you have it. And I think I'm just going to be brave and go for it. So what I have to do is I have to, sometimes I'll sew onto, I'm going to sew onto a piece of fabric. I'd rather, I think it's good to have good habits with this foot. So what I'm going to do is raise my foot. I'm going to hold on to that thread back there, and I'm just going to, I could just use this knob here that will go down. Of course, what I need to do is move this so that my wipers are engaged. And I could just use this foot to do it, okay? This little button here that will go up and down. And what I'm going to do is just make sure that it's actually nailing the thread, okay? And it is. So at this point, I want to cut this dangerous piece of loose thread off, and I should be good to go. And then what I'll do is when I get to the end of here, I'll feed in my regular fabric. I just think it's easier to do it this way. It takes but a second. Right, so I'm going to lift that up. I'm going to find a stripe. And the threads look after themselves, I mean, I'm watching for them, make sure they don't do something I wasn't expecting them to do. And this one, because it's not a piece of ribbon, is easier to do gentle curves. Don't go crazy. Practice straight first. Curves are for the more experienced. So I'm just going to stitch off. And there you have it. See how you've got this little stripe underneath? And that is from the cording foot. I used the smallest one. And this is just decorative thread. I could have used something heavier, much heavier even. But we start somewhere and I show you something. So that I just like the effect of that because of the stripe. I just think it's super cool. Now let's go just cover this, okay? So say I was using this ribbon, which is much narrower. I would only, so I would be using the, don't know what I've done with it now. I'll probably put it away. So worried about losing them. I would be using the tape foot. Hmm. And I can't find it right this second, but I will. So I would need to be using C1 needle and C2 needle for this, and I would need to use a narrow cover stitch. Okay, so just the C1 and C2 because that's a narrow ribbon. Okay, do I have any questions? Let me come back round to me. When you snip the wiper thread after starting stitches, is that thread loose or a worry of fraying out? No, I cut that thread very quickly because it can get wrapped round the wipers and that would cause a lockup. Okay, so that is why I cut that loose thread. Yeah, I found them. Oh, they're so small. You need to think of something to put them in. I'm going to dedicate one of my thousands of zipper bags that I have in here to my microfiche or a little box or something like that because they are tiny. And I have the one that is off the machine sitting up on that magnetic needle. Of course, it's not magnetic, but it will sit there. And then what I'm going to do as soon as I've finished is I'm going to put that one back in the right bag and put that one on because they are small. But they do a super job. Now, what I haven't showed you tonight is the stitch and the ditch feet. And I will do, but it won't be this week. But I want to do some samples first, and I didn't have time to do any. So, but I think it'll make a huge difference to your garment making, particularly. So 3 new comments. So the serger is not going to be used on knits. So this serger is not going to be used on knits because of the no stretch with a ribbon. No, not at all. This isn't a serger. I'm sure you know that. This is a cover stitch machine, okay? And for, it's true. If I was going to sew a ribbon on a knit, I have to understand it doesn't stretch. Now, there's places where it doesn't necessarily need to stretch, like quite often on the bottom of a hem of a t-shirt or even sometimes on the cuffs. So, I wouldn't say I'd never use it on a knit. I'm actually making that board wool jacket, which is a knit, and I'm going to be using ribbon trim around the collar. And the reason it's not a problem is it doesn't need to stretch there, and it would never stretch majorly, but it is still a knit. So again, you have other knits like, oh, something always goes out my head when I'm talking. Um, there's some knits that don't stretch very much, in which case you could put ribbon on there. So Patty just said she used her Applaud to hem some t-shirts, worked wonderfully. Yes, absolutely. I mean, whether you're using ribbon or not, you have to consider how much stretch there is in something. But there's places on knits where you don't need to stretch. So yes, small USB case. Yes. Okay, so I think I think this is something you're going to have to digest. I am doing that club in January, so I'll be reviewing these again, and we'll be using them for some of the projects. I don't know how many projects I'm going. The first class will probably just be all about the machine, and then we'll move on to some projects. Um, but yes, they make a huge difference to me. If I say graffiti quilting, it's where you have sections that are all stitched in a certain way and then you add in things. Well, this is just perfect for that kind of thing. And if that doesn't mean anything, don't worry. I'm going to get it done soon. So I'll show you them. But I love the fact that I can add ribbon in. I love the fact that I can put the cording in there to raise my stitch. I mean, I bought white macrame. It's really not that exciting, but it could have been a gold glitter macrame or something like that. And it would have been far more effective stitching over the cording than it was in my sample. But anyway, I think that's about it. I'm going to edit this tomorrow and then I'll share it to the group. I just want to cut out the beginning where I'm just babbling. And I will put it up in the group tomorrow. Remember, the notes are in the group, Deb Canham Surge Sanity Projects. So I hope you all have a good week. I'll likely see you next Monday. Keep stitching, have fun, relax, no stress. Okay, take care. And thanks so much for joining me tonight, whether you live or whether you come in the recording. Good night.